Welcome into Celtics Late Night. Yes, Jake. Yes, the Celtics, they beat the Bucks. I don't care how it happened. I don't care that they almost pissed it away at the end of the game. They beat the Bucks. How you doing, Jake?
I was just like, why can't I hear the intro again? I had the intro playing in my ear. Sorry, I was very confused.
Good start.
Dude, Late Night. Firstly, I love that intro every time. I'm just like head bang.
It's a banger.
Especially when the Celtics win a monster game against what is supposed to be another Eastern Conference contender. Mm-hmm. But
never in doubt.
Never in doubt.
Never in
Absolutely.
doubt.
That was a fake comeback. Celtics have the Bucks number. This is the matchup.
Right. And like we can, I think, say with some degree of certainty that it was a fake comeback. It was the Celtics losing to themselves, beating themselves, however you want to phrase it, just giving up really in the fourth quarter. I think the Bucks won that quarter 37-25. They didn't get close to, I think, 30 points in any other quarter. And we just decided, okay, like the lead's big enough. And it was just. But it was the same old Celtics there, and I don't want to focus too much on the negative aspects of the later portions of the game. I almost just kind of want to get it out of the way here, Jake.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like we were doing live playback, and some of that is performative, and maybe we were acting a little bit anxious, but I don't think really for the most part we thought that the game was at risk of being lost at any point. It just felt like we were in control when we needed to be, which was the majority of the game.
I think in the moment, I'm stressing. Absolutely anxious. I think it was just frustrating because I think some of the brain dead CTE stuff popped in a couple of times. Yeah, shout out Kenneth from a tent. Where are you camping? Please let us know.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. We are going to put this on the podcast feed as well because we're all going away for the weekend for the most part. So if you're wondering on the podcast feed later, we're just reacting to the chat in here also. And Kenneth Smith is tuning in from a tent on a camping trip somewhere, which is amazing.
Yes,
shout out to all the tent dwellers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. As a fellow tent dweller, huge tent guy. Try not to pitch one on this show, but the one that jumps out the most to me was when Jrue Holiday drove into the paint against Giannis and Brook Lopez, because I think there were a bunch of possessions that were not that bad. There was a beautiful possession that was swing, led to a wide open Jaylen Brown 3, which he missed, despite, being nails throughout the game. He had a nice matchup against Dame where he got to like 4 or 5 feet and missed like a push shot, which I love that shot as well. Mm-hmm. Tatum dunking on Brook Lopez. It was not all bad.
Yeah.
Part of, I think, as well, and this is good. Like, I needed to just take it. The Garden Report being in between this show and this show gives me a second to just breathe, reflect, watch a couple of the plays again, look at some stats, simmer down, fire off some funny jokes on Twitter, and I feel better. But Jason Tatum was sick. They've done a pretty good job, not slowing the ball down in crunch time. I wonder if that had anything to do with Tatum walking the ball up earlier than he usually did. He was like, okay, this one's in hand. I feel like fucking shit, and we're just going to cruise. Because that's been the one thing that they've done is not play slow, but they definitely did today.
Yeah, and yet Tatum got, the game-clinching buckets down the end there where it did get a little bit tight, and he actually, put his head down and got to the rim and did what we had kind of needed him to do for the majority of the game and for that fourth quarter, because the Bucks' perimeter defense is shit, in a word. And even a sick and low-energy Jason Tatum could just put his head down, drop the shoulders, and get to the cup to end the game there and to put it just, thankfully, out of reach from the Bucks' perspective. Yeah,
Jesse, there was a beautiful Porzingis dunk on Lopez. I guess you could describe the Tatum dunk not technically on Lopez, but Lopez was the perimeter defender on Tatum, and Tatum got to the rim, and Lopez was kind of on his hip, trailing, so it wasn't maybe a technical poster, but it felt like a dunk on top of Lopez. And really that was the best possession down the stretch. And that's what they need to do. And they can do against a bunch of these perimeter guys. It was glaring, especially in the first half. Like, the first half was picture perfect. Process, the way they're able to beat their man off the dribble and get the defense in rotation. That's been true of the Bucks previously, but now they don't even have Drew Holiday to contain Derek. Drew can't contain Drew. It's not possible.
At times tonight, it felt like he was.
I was going to say
he was containing the output of the offense, doing a little bit too much, which is an emerging trend, an emerging issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, he can't contain himself for the most part, which is great.
I will say, like, they played incredibly well for the most part, and Derek and Drew didn't have their best games, which I think is a great sign, because I do think this matchup is very favorable for both of those guys. There was just a couple of moments, like Derek kind of, where he's usually just money on making decisions. There was a couple of moments where he got into the lane and missed a couple of floaters, which, usually he at least hits one of those two. He misses both, and like the Bucks get running out the other end. But Drew really struggled with decision making on offense and just to hit shots. Like, yes, some of the decisions weren't great, but he's a better offensive player than this. I have been waving the flag, the gap between Marcus Smart and Drew Holiday, not as wide as the world is making it seem. And I think the last few games have definitely been people jumping on the bandwagon, the carriage. If you're in the playback, Ben made a beautiful analogy about the chariot of...
I think I dribbled a little too much on that possession, making that analogy.
Yes.
It was a while to get it out.
It was one of those Jaylen Brown possessions that, it did end up in a shot, but it was a no-yes analogy.
Beautiful bucket. Yes, absolutely. I'm full of no-yes analogies. It's a great way of putting it, which is itself, within itself, an analogy. Also, yeah.
Here we go.
1 for 8 from the floor. Yeah, I'm just getting started here, Jake. 1 for 8 from the floor. 1 of 5 from 3, and just a little too much Drew. Just dialed up the Drew a little too much. Needed to dial it back a bit. And then you look at it, like Derek White, played more minutes than Drew Holiday. Yep. He got off 1 more field goal attempt, and yet, like, I can't think of a moment where I was like, "No, Derek, what are you doing?" Like, he wasn't overbearing in his approach and his role in the game. It was just like just enough Derek and not too much.
Yeah, so Derek had 6 turnovers, and it just didn't feel like that.
No, exactly.
Which I think is really interesting, because, the eye test and how certain things... Like, Drew Holiday's 8 turnovers against the Hornets felt like 8 turnovers. Mm-hmm. And, Derek, he goes 5 for 9, 3 for 6 from the field, 5 assists. So it's like, the assist-to-turnover ratio is obviously negative there, but he was obviously making plays at the same time. But, yeah, Drew Holiday comes away with the 2 turnovers where it feels like, and obviously he only had 1 assist, so his assist-to-turnover ratio is actually still ends up being worse than Derek White's, despite Derek having the 6 turnovers. Mm-hmm. The decision-making from Derek's always better.
Sure.
And I will say, Drew only put up 8 shots, so I got to give him credit. He definitely forced it, but then you look at the box score, it's not as bad as it kind of felt at the time.
And his defense was great, as it always is. And
yeah, Drew on Giannis, again, seems to be Missoula's kind of thing here.
For sure. Yeah. And then, just so many other options once Drew goes to the bench, like Al Horford, who was incredible tonight, and we'll get to.
Oh, my God. Come on.
So I feel like maybe we can tie a bow on that, Jake. Like, we've kind of gotten the bad out of the way. Like, there's not that much more to say on the fourth quarter issues, because we've seen it time and time again. And, it is just, we think it's a Celtics problem, but good teams do this when they get up, a lot late in the game. Like, they do start to piss it away a little bit as they start to take the foot off the gas. So we've talked about the bad. Getting to the good, I think the primary reason why the Celtics won this game was their defense. What do you think?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, the defense was fantastic, especially in the first half. The fact that so there was a stat from a Locked On Bucks guy that was saying that the Celtics have held Giannis to under 50% shooting 5 games in a row coming into today. And he's like, I'm interested to see how they do, considering they lost Marcus Smart and Grant Williams, a.k.a. the Flop Brothers. Now, obviously, that tweet has been ratioed into oblivion since this game has taken place. but they hold Giannis to 7 for 20, 35% from the field. And Giannis has been on an absolute tear coming into tonight. Like, he's averaging 30, 10, and 5. Like, just doing his typical Giannis Antetokounmpo MVP kind of run here. Like, coming into today, he had 42 points against Washington on 87%. He had 40 points against Dallas on 69%. Nice. 16 points against Charlotte, but he only had to play 28 minutes, 60%, sure. 59%, 68%, 76%. Like, he's been a monster across the board against a variety of different teams. Even against Orlando to be 68%, who have the best defense in the league. The Celtics just have the personnel, and when they are locked in, as they were not the previous 2 to 3 games, they can shut down and make pretty much anyone uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, and when the game has some substance, and the substance in this is that, the Bucks, we expect to run into them in the postseason at some point if they don't lose in the first round again, and that we've got a history with this team. And so when the assignment comes with some sort of meaningfulness behind it, then they get up for it. You just can't say that for the Hornets. As disappointing as that was, and the disappointment is always because of how, it's relative to expectations, right? You expect to beat the bad teams, and so the pain and the suffering after a loss to a bad team is always, multiplied. But, in this game, you mentioned the defense against Giannis and the lack of efficiency there. Damian Lillard, 11 of 24 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3, and a turnstile defensively.
Jesus.
Just like just a complete net negative out there. Obviously he had a couple of clutch buckets that put the game in contention late, but for the most part, I think it was safely a negative. And the Celtics, as well as understanding the assignment defensively on Giannis, and from a team perspective, they understood, how to exploit Dame's weaknesses as well, and how to mitigate his strengths offensively.
Yeah, we have the personnel to make these guys uncomfortable. Maxey. We've talked about how the Celtics have held him well below his season-long efficiency. So, Dame goes 11 for 24. 4 of those made field goals come in the fourth quarter when, yes, it was stressful towards the end, but it was kind of a fake comeback, similar to how the Celtics had a fake comeback against the Sixers, when they, ran through and they had a shot to tie. That even was more of a real comeback because we actually had a shot to tie it.
Sure.
This was really a fake comeback, and for Dame to do his damage, have 11 of his points in the fourth quarter when the game was kind of out of reach, that's a good sign. I think, they forced him into a lot of tough shots, which he's going to maybe shoot better than 11 for 24 in a playoff game. Mm-hmm. But when you're able to go at him on the other end consistently, that's going to wear him down, especially in a playoff series. I'm not concerned about Dame Lillard the way I am concerned about what Steph Curry was able to do to this. You go back to the 22. I know, Ben. Sorry. Jesus, Jake. Trigger warning.
Well, yeah, I do need a warning before you bring up losing to Steph Curry in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Some warning would be appreciated. Thank you. Sorry. Proceed.
I did do that because sometimes I'm just life's good, and then I just left turn. But you go back to that series, and Steph Curry had to have literally an historic, one of the best finals performances of all time in order to kind of break down that defense. And Dame Lillard, as incredible as he is, just not Steph Curry. Got a question here. Those were dark times, Mary Poppins.
It was extremely dark times.
How has Dame played in the playoffs? He actually has not been a legit playoff guy. And, part of that, if you want to say, is situation, didn't have the horses. He made the Western Conference Finals once, got swept out by the Warriors. That is the Warriors, so, you don't want to hold that too much against him. But he has struggled as a guy to carry in the playoffs throughout his career. And the theory is that, with Giannis, that kind of burden is lightened. But this Bucks team, outside of Dame and Giannis, get to Middleton here, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say. Talk about Middleton. Talk about a turnstile. Jesus, man.
The burden is going to be significant for Dame again. And I don't know, was the dunk that he missed at the rim a omen, potentially? The fact that he kind of left it short. Was that because he didn't have enough gas in the legs? Was that because he was scared that Derek White was coming down?
I think all of the above.
All of the above? But like the burden for him is going to be massive, and Giannis, because Middleton missed his calling as a matador. Thank you, DJ Daniel, in the chat here.
Yes, thank you. Spot on. Yeah, terrible. And maybe Middleton, like you could say, heated up a little bit offensively as the game went on, but not nearly enough to walk away saying, I impacted that game.
He was 4 for 14.
Yeah, I know. But it was just in that fourth quarter. And maybe this goes back to the Celtics taking their foot off the pedal in the fourth quarter on both ends, and that allowing some space for Middleton to appear somewhat as a productive NBA player. But for the parts of the games that truly mattered, he was dog shit. Which bodes well for the playoffs. And it's a long season, but I feel like, looking in the rear view mirror as well for the Bucks, like Middleton has kind of been floundering like this, yes, due to injury, but it's part of the game. It's part of the sport. Injury is kind of the catalyst for the decline of one's career. He's been like this for quite a while now, so it's sort of tough to see, the good road ahead for Middleton as far as how he can turn things around, especially while Dame and that part of the chemistry is also trying to figure itself out at the same time.
Yeah, 32-year-olds that have had multiple knee surgeries and have showed signs of decline for the past 2+ years don't typically just find the fountain of youth, unless you're Al Horford, of course. But that was a Philly problem. That the youth never left that man's body. That was a Philadelphia curse that was bestowed upon that beautiful man for one season. But other than that, he's an outlier. Guys that have gone through, and like Horford's never gone through that type of injury stuff, and like 32-year-olds aren't getting back there like lateral quickness. Middleton has struggled guarding Jason Tatum as a rookie. And now, when Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are the type of offensive players they are today, like the gap is only getting more and more obvious. It's a bad sign for the Bucks. Like, on one hand, if you're a Bucks fan, you can convince yourself that you're like, okay, as the year comes along, he's going to round into form. Yeah, that's definitely possible. But at the same time, is it also like, well, we're 6 weeks into the season now, I don't even know. Time is a weird thing. 1 month into the season.
For me, it's like we're either in the NBA season or we're out. Those are the two like states of being in my life, and we're in the NBA season right now. In case you were wondering, yes.
Oh, I'm very aware. I believe the 18th feels like a number that sounds familiar to me. So 4 to 6 weeks into the season, they're still limiting his minutes. Like you'd like to think that he would be showing more signs of returning to form at this point, but like best case scenario, he gets a little bit better. But I don't even think the Celtics they played well, but Tatum was clearly not peak Tatum in the way that he's able to dominate the Bucks in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Tatum did not play the way that we would like him to play, but clearly the illness was bothering him, and he didn't have the Jordan rise above it flu game. But I mean, if you look at Jordan's shooting efficiency in the flu game, like it was not efficient at all. Anyway,
oh, really?
I digress. Before we move on, let's just hear a quick word from our sponsor, FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thanks to CLNS for presenting the First of the Floor show. Shout out to FanDuel, our official and only sponsor. If you would like to sponsor this show, we are open to more sponsorships. Hit us up, firstofthefloor18@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter. Always open to doing business with the kind folks of Celtics fandom. Jake, what do you got?
I was gonna say I just looked up the box score of the flu game, and Jordan 13 for 27, 48% from the field.
That's actually pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not bad, but Jason Tatum 41% from the field.
There you go.
It's not as good, but
not as good as Michael Jordan.
Not as good, which I think that's actually not a bad thing. When people are like, well, Michael Jordan flu game, it's like, yeah, that's Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
This is the Jason Tatum version of the flu game.
Sure. True. Yep.
And regular season. Like, I promise you, if it's Game 6 of the NBA Finals, the game probably looks a little bit different. Something I will say about Tatum, got to the line 9 times today, and none of those were 3-point foul attempts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, what did he shoot from the line? Because I'm still
7 for 9.
Yeah, 7
not
for 9,
nearly
pretty
as
good.
bad as you think.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's still, again, another game where he's shooting well below his 85%. Like, if he goes 8 for 9, then obviously he's going above the 85%, I believe. That's becoming a thing now. Like, he's 80% on the season, and he shot below 80% again today. That's one thing I'm not really worried about, but it would be really nice if he was back to that 85% mark, because there's definitely been a few games here where we really could have used 2 extra free throws. And it kind of feels like an epidemic amongst the team right now. Like KP right now went 6 for 10. He missed a couple tonight, both of whom are 85% career foul throw shooters. So that'll stabilize. But man, stressful, dude. There's nothing worse than your team missing free throws when they're like not supposed to miss free throws.
Yeah, until, like you said, you watch the Garden Report, you simmer down, and you begin to realize, like, we kind of had it in hand really from the tip-off. And yes, we almost fumbled it at the end there, but aside from a few, short moments, it really felt like we were under control. A couple of comments here from Cal J. Did Derek White get a piece of that Dame layup? Yeah, we caught the replay on our playback stream. He did not, but he put a lot of pressure on Dame from behind. Yeah, and obviously,
yes, he did.
Vibes him into missing it. Like, you have to feel that pressure, right?
Well,
and then a sense of urgency in rushing the shot.
Similar to how Drew Holiday missed the dunk again in the Grizzlies game. Like, technically, Jaren Jackson didn't get a piece of it, but he's like, it's like a crash, like a collision course at the rim, and that impacts. Look, as someone that hasn't done a lot of dunking in their life,
I've missed a lot of layups.
I missed a lot of layups, that's for sure. But I imagine that, when there's the defender breathing down your neck or meeting you at the rim, it does have an impact. And so I think that definitely was part of it.
Another comment here. Are we finally rid of Celtics killer Middleton? Yes. I think he is now being killed by the Celtics. Yes. The tables have turned. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to all 50 odd of you on the stream so far. If you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe, like the stream, all of those things, like comment, engage with it, particularly liking and subscribing. We're on our way up to 3,000 subs on this channel. We've got a whole bunch more listeners to the audio pod as well, which you can also subscribe to. But look, there's a lot of Celtics content out there. It's hard to get this sort of stuff out in front of as many eyeballs as possible. So for you to do those things really helps us navigate the algorithm. So please go ahead and do that. I feel like we should talk about Jaylen Brown. 23 in, who was awesome and clearly listens to the Bill Simmons podcast, the Zach Lowe podcast, potentially our podcast First to the Floor. He copped some criticism, rightfully so, on his approach and his inability to settle into the groove of his role this season. And then tonight he came out and he seemed to feel like and look like he knew exactly what he was doing.
You couldn't ask for a bigger bounce back game.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, this was as good as it gets for Jaylen Brown. Did he get to 10 assists?
8 assists.
8 assists. I was like, what the?
I was dreaming.
We did talk about how he was coming close to a double-double there. I mean, what better way to answer the haters? It wasn't just the fact that he went 10 for 16 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, 100% from the free throw line. I might add, 3 for 3. It is, it's the process, and in the box score, it's the 8 assists and the 1 turnover. I mean, I don't know, it's like an eclipse. That's not something that we see very often. Is an 8-1 Haley's comment. Exactly. We don't see Jaylen Brown 8-1 assist games very often, but I don't know, man. I feel like it's in there somewhere. It's just an approach, from the jump. He has to be conscious of it. I felt like he played this way in the Heat game, in the second game of the season, where he was just really solid despite a team that has given him trouble in the past. Now the difference is, Jaylen Brown loves this matchup.
Yes, he always has.
loves this matchup. Going back to Tatum's rookie year, that 7-game series, the Drew Bledsoe series, which reminds me of when we were doing a podcast and about the Drew Bledsoe thing, and you just kept
Drew Holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just did it. Yeah, man. I've gotten over it. It took me
we got
of having Drew Holiday on the team, but it's like finally ingrained in my
we got that Drew Holiday. But yeah, man, since the Drew Bledsoe series, the Scary Terry series, that was like Jaylen Brown's like coming out party for like being a playoff performer. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the performance in the second round 2 years ago, dropping Grayson Allen comes to mind in game 2 and stabilizing the Celtics, tying the series 1-1. He loves this matchup because they don't have guys that can get up into him. There are no perimeter defenders on this team anymore, especially. Like Drew Holiday was the only guy that could give him trouble. And now it's Dame, it's Marshall, the Beauchamp, dude. Like he's their toolsiest defender. Jay Crowder was out tonight, but that's worse.
Owned.
That might be worse. And so, like, he's so comfortable and confident. And this budding 2-man game, dude. I mean, it's time to run the clip, right?
Which clip?
I mean, let's do this one.
This at the break. Toronto, Charlotte, Boston has given up some leads over the last couple of games.
Oh, Jaylen Brown says it with his chest. And looks at his bench. Wow.
And Kristaps Porzingis' reaction to that dunk was
celebrating.
Priceless.
The windmill slam.
What, dude? We haven't seen
his comment.
Like Jaylen, his best dunks are like posters. You know, on Maxi Kleber, Giannis has got a couple. He's got one on LeBron, Rudy Gobert. Rarely do we get the windmill. I can't think of like many of these. He usually just goes straight up for the tomahawk. But man, windmill jam off the KP best friends backdoor cut.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
There's
you got it too?
Nice. Yeah, man.
Great
man. These are our
minds.
Guys, our stepbrothers.
Yes.
Doing all kinds of activities with all their room. Doing karate in the garage. It's all happening with these two. So this is a titillating story and narrative that has unexpectedly emerged from the early part of the season where, like, if you could, when we got Porzingis, if you were like, who's he going to buddy up with? Like, who's he going to develop, like, the ultimate chemistry with? I think the obvious answer would be Jason Tatum, and then you run down the list, and it's like maybe Drew, maybe Derek White, maybe even Peyton Pritchard, like someone with some ball handling, some sort of, like, court awareness, basically. Not Jaylen Brown. And yet these guys that live in the same building, they carpool, and that just comes, they drive in their carpool right onto the court, and it's like, keep it rolling. It's amazing. Dude,
the best friends narrative is real. Like, move over Jason Tatum. I don't know what it is. I can't. KP is like low key pretty funny, but man, I've never seen Jaylen Brown so happy before. Like in all these post game press conferences and talking about KP, it's love, and it's really helping the on court like product. Obviously, like the fact that they've built this chemistry and it's going both ways. Like you've got KP finding JB on backdoor cuts and JB finding KP on lobs. It's really simplifying the game, and that's what Jaylen Brown needs. And today, on a night where he's feeling comfortable, and then they're in the flow of things, like it's unstoppable. Because especially against a team like the Bucks that can't. One, you don't want Brook Lopez being pulled out to the perimeter with KP's shooting, which he is. But then the perimeter defenders that are like trying to handle the pick and roll and the handoff game have no chance of staying with Jaylen. And so it's just over and over and over again tonight. It was glorious.
That KP pin down, I don't know if you just mentioned it, that's like Jaylen flares out to the wing, and then it just opens up like so much space for both of them to operate. It's incredible. Someone who JB also found, made an excellent, beautiful connection with in this game was Sam Hauser.
Good defense by Pritchard. And he got to stop. Brown got a 2-on-1 with Hauser. There's the lob, and there's the finish.
See Luke on that in the background?
Luke, dude.
And then Jaylen had this to say in his post-game interview.
What possessed you to throw an alley-oop to Sam Hauser?
I looked at him, he looked at me. That was all the confirmation I needed. We locked eyes, and I said, it. He looked at me like, Like, he was ready, so I threw it to him, and he followed through. So shout out to Sam.
Shout out to Sam, man. Shout
Dude.
out to Sam. That was amazing.
Beautiful.
What a moment.
I know. Like we've talked about potentially creating categories for the late night show, and one of them, and I'm forgetting most of them off the top of my head, but I know one of them is the Eroticism Award.
Yeah.
Like, this is tough. This is one of those games. This is why you create the award, because it was an arousing performance from all types of guys, and it's a trick. Who do you give it to? Because Jaylen, I feel like, was definitely the most in love today. Like, he's just floating on a cloud, not a care in the world. But KP's just a little sexier, maybe. It's hard to know.
Just to clarify, yeah. How do you grade the Eroticism Award? Is it just like how personally aroused you are based on a performance, or is it guys romanticizing other guys on the team? Is it a team chemistry thing? Like, what are we talking here?
I think all of the above. I think there's
you got to give it to Jaylen. Jaylen was dishing out the love, right?
Yeah.
And it was jumping out of the screen into my room here. I was feeling it at home, so. Got to give the Eroticism Award, the inaugural Eroticism Award to Jaylen Brown. Congratulations,
hey man,
Jaylen.
Juice. A lot of juice out there for Jaylen tonight. Just energy. He was throwing it all around. Beautiful. Yep. And I like happy Jaylen Brown. This is good, and to see him respond after well earned criticism, not shying away, big stage, the second betting favorite in the Eastern Conference, go out there and have his best game of the season. It's not even really close.
We're getting a request to play the JB windmill dunk again, so we
you
got
insist.
you, bro.
This is the break. Toronto, Charlotte, Boston has given up some leads over the last couple of games.
Oh, Jaylen Brown says it with his chest and looks at his bench. Wow.
And Kristaps Porzingis' reaction to that dunk was
celebrating.
priceless.
So good, man.
Oh,
And, the handoff game as well with KP. He faked the handoff to Derek White, and then it's backdoor with Jaylen. It's perfect. We always seem to get really good looks out of that. And worst case, KP can just reset or he can post up. There's so much that we can get out of that. So it's awesome. It's such an awesome wrinkle in our offense. We do have a clip of Joe Mazzulla talking about Jaylen Brown after the game as well.
When he has a game like Mondays, or just kind of the ups and downs with the playmaking, do you spend extra time in the film? How do you see him kind of react to a game like Mondays, and what leads to a night like tonight for him?
One, it's not overreacting to a long year, so you're going to have bad games, and two, it's just his habits. Regardless if he plays well or not, he does the same thing, same routine after shoot around. Whether with his film and with reads on the court with his coaches. And so for him, it's just he stays even keel. And so it's easy to trust him and know that he's going to work his way back.
For Jaylen, not to double down on being Jaylen and actually focus on improving himself, Kaizen mindset, is that's awesome as well. You could easily expect the response to be, well, fuck you guys. I'm just going to be more Jaylen than ever and put up 30 shots and not pass the ball. But to actually respond in the way he did was awesome.
Yeah,
Should
man.
we move on? What else you got?
We can move on, but I think for him to have this performance and do it the way that he did is so important. For him to do it on 16 shots, I think a lot of Jaylen's game is predicated on being a tough shot maker, but he's been taking just ridiculously difficult shots that don't need to be taken. And tonight he made some tough shots, but it was way more on the flow. He made a deep 2-pointer coming off a handoff, and just pulls up, and it was way more on the flow. There was just not the dribble Jaylen stuff that we have seen. And again, he didn't even lead the team in shots. The fact that he had 16 shots and Tatum still led the team with 17. I was going to ask you because, part of the reason maybe we didn't get to see it in the clutch was because Porzingis was in foul trouble. But, my favorite go-to thing in crunch time is just Tatum in the post, get him on. With the Bucks, it's quite easy to find a mismatch, which is very nice. He's 3 of the 5 players on the court are going to be someone you're comfortable with Tatum kind of posting up, because they did get good looks out of it. Even Tatum thought he got fouled on one, but he's just got to make that, led to that whip around possession that they didn't finish. But we didn't get to see it. But the two-man game with Jaylen and Porzingis in the clutch is not something I feel like we've seen yet.
No, I mean, I suppose you're right. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers within clutch time for the
just
Celtics,
trust us.
but-
Trust yourself. You haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, the eye test. I can't recall seeing a lot of it. I feel like, I mean, there's probably some good reason for that because half of that equation is Jaylen Brown, who has proven himself to be, outside of this game and a smaller sample size outside of this game as well, untrustworthy in the clutch. And so, as much as Porzingis has been reliable thus far, it's tough to include Jaylen Brown in any sort of reliable late game offensive execution. But in this game, I would have very comfortably seen it. But of course, the foul trouble, even just like solo Porzingis, who maybe we can transition to a little bit, who has just been such a positive influence end to end on this team. Just amazing trade, Brad Stevens. As much as we were sorry to see Marcus Smart go, what a move! And Porzingis in this game was incredible. He had that like thunderous dunk on Lopez. His rim protection was solid. The Bucks took, like, just going back to the defense, but including Porzingis for a second, they took the majority of their shots at the rim, 40% of their shots at the rim, and yet only shot 65%, which is like 50th percentile, which is shit. They were 25 of 38 from the rim, 4 of 18 from short mid, and so much of that, credit Al Horford as well, who did a really good defensive job coming off the bench. But Porzingis, so effective defending around the rim, and I feel like those aren't even the sexy things that like jump off the page, jump off the screen as far as like his impact on the game. Most of that happens offensively as well. The fact that he's like uncovered this enlightened version of Jaylen Brown on top of everything else, like like how many people in the world can have that effect on Jaylen Brown, who is so set in his ways as far as we know. So yeah, Porzingis in the clutch, you'd love to see more of it. Foul trouble, definitely a factor for him thus far in the season. But like, I mean, we probably win this game regardless because the Bucks were so terrible. But the reason we had such a big lead that we could piss away in the end was because of how impactful Porzingis was prior to the foul trouble.
He's been ridiculous, man. To go again another night where he's 60% from the field, despite not shooting well from three on these last, this last like 5+ games, really. He hit
one today that felt good.
He hit two today. 2 from 7. And honestly, they may have both been Jaylen Brown assists. I'm pretty sure they were as well. So many of these like pick and pops and stuff, they're finding him just either like half a second too late so it can contest can get there, or when they are finding him, they're throwing it to him like outside of his shooting pocket, or to quote the great Wayne Spooney from the playback stream earlier today, outside of his fanny pack, because that's what's annoying is that Kristaps Porzingis' shooting pocket is so large. It's like, just throw it where he doesn't have to move. He's got 7 foot and 1 million wingspan. Just throw it somewhere in the vicinity so he can get a shot up quickly. They keep finding him, and it was happening with Al Horford for a while too. But now Al Horford's finally getting some clean looks, and he's knocking his shot down. Unsurprisingly to me, when Porzingis is getting found in the fanny pack, he's knocking it down. And so I would just like to see him get some cleaner looks. If people could just be a little crisper, I think maybe they're just living this honeymoon phase of he's so easy to hit. Like I don't have to think too much about hitting him with a crisp, accurate pass. Just hit him accurately, and I guarantee you that the 3-point percentage goes back up.
Yeah, and promptly as well. Like, the accuracy is one thing, but we talked about on the playback stream, just like, don't hesitate. Like, he's out there.
Yes.
He's open. He's out there, and he's loving every minute of it, Jake, and he just wants the ball as quickly as possible. And there has been some hesitancy in getting those passes off, and that improved throughout the course of this game and led to those makes. So hopefully that's a learning, that's a takeaway from these guys. Take it from us.
Take it from us. Throw it in the fanny pack. I promise you it's going to be good. But like another like when you do find him quickly and accurately, not only does he get cleaner looks at the rim, but then the closeout and the defense is more scrambled when the passes are inaccurate. So tonight we saw it as well, was him attacking the closeouts, which we have not seen a lot this year, which is like one of his most impressive skills as a 7'3" big man that can protect the rim and stretch the floor, is that he can really attack closeouts. And today we saw him attack closeouts and hit the Euro step across the rim and pop in a couple of shots.
Yeah, and he looks wildly out of control, Jake. And yet, like,
No.
we have to learn that he knows what he's doing in those moments. And while it's sort of gangly and looks like he might keel over, Leaning Tower of Pisa style at any point, like he's on track, he's focused, and I've said this on recent shows, but like he made a point of emphasis in the last 2 off seasons of like resetting his base foundation and resetting or improving rather his lower body workouts, and that shows. Like he's so much less brittle now when it comes to driving to the hoop, and while he might look out of control, he's on track. Like he's getting to the bucket. It's great with finesse too.
This is important to note. Pete in the chat here, the creator of the Bear Slayer nickname, doesn't fanny mean something different in Australia than it does in the US? Yes, that is correct, and we typically actually call a fanny pack a bum bag, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So
doing this show for so long, like we almost talk in US time.
Well, it's we're constantly code switching, just Australian, US, it's all over the place. So
yes, fanny does mean something else here.
Yes.
And we'll leave it at that.
Yes, we will.
Al Horford in the bench.
Let's go.
6, 7, 8, like just looking like well and truly part of an 8-man playoff rotation there. Who would you start with the bench? Because everyone was pretty on point in this game.
It's tricky. I think you leave Hauser at the bottom of the list. That's not because he didn't play great, but I think it's a tie between Pritchard and Horford. We'll go Horford because I really think when you talk about what's the most important in our lives, what's going to be the most important thing about winning a championship is the fact that Al Horford, not a week later, we're sitting here talking about Al Horford playing lights out against another contender, against a team that people were like, oh, how are they going to defend Giannis? The team's so big. What are they going to do? Kristaps Porzingis can get into foul trouble, and it's not a problem because we have Al Horford. Al freaking Horford. Kristaps Porzingis can take the day off against the Philadelphia 76ers because we have Al Horford. 11 points, 8 rebounds. He was on the boards today. Like this Bucks team are monstrous on the boards between Lopez and Giannis. And Al Horford's been really battling on the boards, more so than I've seen in basically his whole career. And it's because of his role and how he's like buying into this like energy 6-man like little bunny dude. It's like he's kind of turning back the clock, just getting on the glass and making the right play.
Yeah. And
it's beautiful.
I feel like we give up so many second chance points. I'd have to confirm that by looking at the stats. I feel like that's the case though. Or maybe that's just part of my suffering as a Celtics fan. But you can imagine Al sitting on the bench stewing like, mate, like, come on guys, like, we've got to grab these boards. And then he just leaps off the bench, gets into the game, and just like crashes the fuck out of the boards as soon as he gets in the game. And to have that ability, I guess, is maybe a plus for Al Horford to like sit on the bench and reassess what the points of emphasis are as the beginning of the game unfolds, and then going, okay, like here's where I can impact the game, and have that chance to sort of survey, the landscape before jumping in. And a player, of his experience and age and intelligence, that's a really good spot for him to be in. 6 assists today, a +5. When you look at, the majority of the starting lineup are all a negative ±, with the exception of Kristaps Porzingis. Like the impact of Horford is real.
The bench.
Just the knowledge, man. Like the knowledge and the expertise when it comes to slowing down some of the best players ever. Some of the best players in the league right now. I say best players ever. I guess I'm referring to Giannis, not so much Embiid. Although that
I mean, he will go down as a top 100, 125 player ever. So you're not too far off.
Yeah, but just it's like he's stopping them. Obviously, he's a big guy, and he's still quite flexible and mobile as an older guy. But it's the knowledge, it's the expertise on their tendencies and like how they like to score and what they like to do that is really what's stopping them. And it's just such a sight to behold. And I just hope that when it's all said and done with Al Horford, that everyone outside of the Celtics fan base appreciates just how unique of a skill that is.
People have been talking about Al Horford, or trying to talk about Al Horford being washed for like 3 years now. Every year I have to listen to Russillo or whoever podcasting nationally and be like, no, Al Horford's another year older. Like, can he hold up? Like, they got so much out of him last year. Yeah, that's because he's a LeBron-level durable, LeBron-level fountain of youth drinking. Like, I don't know how he's done it. But like this commitment, we've talked about this. And Mary Poppins in the chat here's got it. He bats his beautiful long eyelashes, throw off his opponent. A lot of this has to do with genetics. Like the fact that he's still doing this at 37 years old. Today he plays 30 minutes because Porzingis gets into foul trouble. And the reason he's able to like play at this level at the 30 minutes because they've got him on this senior citizen program. He's able to be so impactful still. Like we got to get Jimmy N in the chat. We got to get Al a ring. Like this is of utmost importance. We got to Can Al make it to 40? Says DJ Daniel. A version of Al will make it to 40. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to make it to 110 in his life, so I think he can make it to 40 on the basketball court. Do we need to like revisit the title hoist rankings, like the person that will make you cry the most heavy when you see them hoisting the Larry OB? I don't want to jinx it, if you see them hoisting it, I feel like Al Horford is number one, right? And then Derek White, Tatum, right?
No, it's Tatum.
It's the narrative. It's like, young guy got his first.
What's our guy? Yeah.
Al Horford, Jason Tatum.
I think.
Derek White.
I think like,
and folks in the chat, let us know as well, because don't let us just ramble on this.
Like Tatum, I'm just gonna. It's a proud thing. With Al, it's pure just joy and happiness for him. Like obviously, I'll be proud of Al, but like not proud of Al the way that I'll be proud of Tatum. Like Tatum's way more like my son than Al is like my father, and. Like, I'm just going to just be so... Both important
relationships.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I'm going to be proud of my second father, Al Horford. But it's different. I'm just like, he's worked so hard for so many years, been so professional for so long, contributed to winning for so long. He's been giving fits to Joel Embiid and Giannis for his entire Celtics tenure. For when did he even get here? 2016?
Yeah.
It's been like 7 years, dude, and he's just been destroying these guys since he got here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right, so I'm getting a sense that you want to leave the title hoist rankings alone for a little bit.
What do you got?
Jinx anything?
Yeah, I don't. Come on.
Well, you don't want to go there?
It's a bit
Too
much.
early?
I can't do it. Surly's been.
Yeah,
we can't do it.
Sorry, you know how I go. I get ahead of myself. We beat the Bucks one time in a game that we almost lose, and this is where I go. That said, folks in the chat, if you're watching live or watching later, let us know your thoughts on the title rankings. Tatum put the game away. We talked about that.
We got to do the rest of the bench.
Rest of the bench. Forgive me.
Rest of the bench.
Sam
Al was number one.
Yeah, well, I would say Peyton Pritchard was number 2 in this game. And
Absolutely.
Following on from the last game, we put up a nice reel on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. Follow us there if you're not already. We're cutting clips from all our pods and content, chucking them up there. Latest one was on Peyton Pritchard from the Hornets game, who was incredible. Nice to see him have the same impact in a win, Jake.
To string this together with the Hornets game, this game means more or whatever, but... To do it 2 games in a row, not in garbage time, not in the preseason, not in summer league, and he feels like he's found his confidence. Like he fired a transition pull-up 3, which was pretty aggressive, which he missed. But today, I thought was by far the most confident he looked. Even against the Hornets, obviously he looked incredibly confident the way that he attacked McGowan's and like spin move, bump to the rim, bumping Brandon Miller, getting to the rim as well. Like today, firing at will. I have not seen him look like that this year at all. And to see that gives me so much confidence. When he's able to add this shot making to the other stuff that he's been doing, because today he wasn't able to get offensive rebounds. The Bucks are so good on the boards. That's going to be something that maybe he can't do. So he's going to have to like make shots to really be impactful. And you go 4 for 7 from the field, but specifically the 2 for 4 from 3, both big shots, pushing that lead out. Like the Celtics starting lineup is so good that like if a team's able to kind of survive that, you want to feel pretty solid, like that you've gotten to the Hauser, Pritchard, Horford part of the game. But if Pritchard's going to be able to come in and knock and be like a 40% 3-point shooter, which I believe that he is, like it's just a game changer for this team.
Yeah, confidence is the foundation of his game. And, it's one thing to go, okay, he was confident in a somewhat meaningless game against the Hornets. For him to come out, important game, Thanksgiving Eve, back home in the Garden, big Eastern Conference rival, for him to have that kind of confidence in this game that matters this much, that's huge in terms of the longevity of his confidence. Like, if it's as unwavering as that, then that bodes really well for the future. So
yeah, for
good to
sure.
see.
You could definitely be like, oh, you know, it was just the Hornets, easy to have confidence, league pass on a Monday night, to quote Jason Tatum. But to do it, national game, Doris Burke, Mark Jones, is big time.
Totally. Sam Hauser, good again. I want to say the three
usual.
was back. Can I look at the stats?
2 for
2
3.
of 3. Okay, so didn't overdo it. Didn't overemphasize his approach. Just kind of filled the gaps. 4 or 5 from the floor overall. And just, it's little things with Hauser. We talk about it on the stream. His defense, like his individual defense, was quite good. And yes, like he's giving up a lot in terms of size and weight and athleticism on guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he got beat once or twice, as everyone in the league does. But he does such a good job of influencing the attackers, the ball handlers' direction, either baseline or into the help defense, and all these fundamental things that some of the best players in the league don't possess. He's such a good defender for his size and his contract, man. So to see him bounce back and just kind of settle, I think coming off the bench really matters for him as well.
Yeah.
It seems like whenever he starts, even though we're not really asking that much more of him beyond a higher minutes load, that does tend to impact him. Coming off the bench, he can just sort of settle into the game and keep a cool head, I think.
Yeah, he's very comfortable in his role right now. The defense is, like, obviously there's going to be a couple of possessions when he has to deal with Damian Lillard, but that's going to be true of pretty much everybody besides the Derek Whites and the Alex Carusos and the Drew Holidays of the world. But Sam Hauser, like, getting ISO'd on Dame Lillard and holding up, even if it was maybe a foul, being that first line of defense and not being a complete turnstile is just not something that was supposed to be possible. And the fact that he's able to provide that, and he's really bought into becoming like an energy guy too. Like, he had a really nice offensive rebound today as well, running the floor on that Jaylen Brown thing. Like, you got to run the floor, and he gets on the he gets on the boards. Like, he's become like a pretty solid, like, all around player all of a sudden. Like, obviously, you know, you don't want him putting the ball on the ground too much, but he looks comfortable, you know, pump faking, driving a closeout, just making an easy pass to someone. And he just looks like he's getting more and more comfortable. And the bench mob is really kind of like rounding into form now.
He would be the NBL MVP. I am fully convinced. Now he's got the dunking chops. He can shoot from anywhere. He can cut. He can pass. He can defend anybody in the league.
Oh, dude. Well, like, Chris Goulding is like up there in NBL MVP stuff, and Hauser's a kind of a 6'7" version of him. So I would have no doubt that Hauser would be in the mix for NBL MVP.
While we're there, look, I'm pretty much out of.
I'll say, look at this. The real Daryl is very much on the Ben wavelength here. This Celtics win the chip this season, they'll repeat next season. That's where we are apparently today.
Well, we got to be careful. If you're new to the channel, first like and subscribe, like the stream, subscribe to the channel. But a known part of First of the Floor lore is that fateful day where Jake and I went to Surly's pub in Surrey Hills, and I said confidently we're winning the chip this year. And that was the day that the season turned around. It was the day that we lost to the Warriors. Colin in the chat asks, how did you guys become Celtics fans? We can do this, right? This is late night. We're rudderless.
We're at 53 minutes. This is a good time for it.
Yeah, and I feel like with the talk of the game has run its course a little bit.
Yeah.
So first of all, people in the chat, Colin yourself, how did you guys become Celtics fans? If you live in Boston, then that's an obvious one. But we'd love to know, especially Pete, who I believe is from Latvia or Latvia adjacent. I'm getting a Latvian vibe from Pete.
But he knows about Illawarra. The Illawarra Hawks, Jason Tatum, dad, the head coach.
Yeah. So as far as becoming a Celtics fan, I think Jake and I... Well, Jake, I mean, you want to go yours first? Because, you know,
Sure.
you got family from Boston, so it's a bit of a simpler tale.
Sure, yeah. So my dad grew up in Andover, Massachusetts. And so when he moved to Australia and started a family, then it's kind of just in our blood. Boston sports is kind of a religion, and that's really it. And so people are often like, why are you a Celtic? Especially right now, because they've been so good the last, like, this is now the third year in the row where they've been like really, really good. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, of course you're a Celtics fan. Why is that? I'm like, yeah, dad's from Boston, which is a really fun response.
Yeah, and you got to show the receipts. Like, here's my, like, you know, 2015 Isaiah Thomas jersey.
Yeah,
or,
mate, Chauncey Billups. I got a Chauncey Billups
yeah,
jersey.
There you I grew up in Thailand and went to an American school, which, Jake, you also went to an American school in Singapore, right? Yeah.
Correct.
And all my friends were American. They were super into the NBA, and some of them were from Boston. They were Celtics fans, and they got me into the Celtics. I was 7 years old. And I don't think I watched a Celtics game probably until like 10 years later, until League Pass became, and like the internet bandwidth in Australia became high enough to stream anything, let alone NBA games. But I had like one of my first cards was a Larry Bird card, and Larry Bird in like the late 80s with the mullet and the mustache looked like every guy, every bloke at the Erina like leagues club, which my dad played footy at and took me to as a kid. And there was just a familiarity there, which I think helped me gravitate towards the Celtics. But fortunately, like I kind of, even though I was like a Celtics fan and said that I was and had all the cards and memorabilia and jerseys and stuff like that, I didn't actually watch any games until sort of the mid to late 2000s. And so I kind of missed the bleak years of the 90s and the early 2000s. Even though if you had asked me that, I would have said I was a Celtics fan. And I'm glad that it turned out that way. Both that I became Celtics fans and that I missed like the worst parts of franchise history, because it's feeling pretty good now. Although only one championship in my lifetime, Jake. Same for
Correct.
you, right?
Yeah. Like I mean, like, I was again obviously Celtics fan my whole life, but like we didn't really get access to the games easily until like the 2010s. And the Big Three era was kind of done at that point. So like I watched all the Big Three playoff runs, but regular season basketball was not something that we had access to. Mm-hmm. So not until like my first year getting League Pass was the year that we traded for Isaiah Thomas, which was a great year to get League Pass. And so like if I'm doing Celtics trivia, it kind of starts that year and like the kind of years previous, like kind of following that team, you learn about the couple of years prior. But that it was purely an access thing. And now, great timing. Like the NFL was much easier to get access to, and especially being a Patriots fan because they're always really good. So like if you are going to get access to American sports in those years, it was going to be all the good teams. And so a lot of Patriots, but not as much Celtics.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I mean, some great Patriots years over the last 2 decades now, or thereabouts. But yeah, I mean, let us know in the comments or after the fact. Spotify has a comments feature now as well. Like, how'd you become a Celtics fan? How'd you find the show? Interested in that side of the conversation as well.
I was gonna say, I mean, before we wrap up,
sure.
The Magic game
coming up.
Magic game. How are you feeling about the Magic game? This is an in-season tournament game. The Magic are 2-1. We need to like kind of win in order to like get guarantee that we get through. It's like this is arguably more of a must-win than it was today. And the Magic have been awesome as of late. I watched the Raptors Magic game yesterday, and Jalen Suggs is Marcus Smart reincarnated. It was like the first 5 minutes of the game, and he has 5 plays that he's diving on the floor, he's like attacking the rim, he's screaming into the crowd. It was glorious. And the way that he energized the rest of his team was so Marcus Smart-esque. Like, he has a questionable jump shot. The offense is kind of, that's the question, but you just kind of know straight away that he's going to be a winner. So keep an eye on that part of it, is that he's just like a really fun player to watch. But they have like the best defense in the league. And I think that the Celtics wouldn't shock me if they're. I really don't hope they're not lackadaisical, but I have a feeling that they're gonna kind of come in and not be as locked in as they were today. And my FanDuel recommended bet is bet the under on this game. Celtics really good defense, Magic bad offense, Magic incredibly good defense. It's gonna be like a rock fight.
Yeah, they have the third best defense in the past 2 weeks per Clean the Glass with a 109.1 defensive rating. We have the fourth best defense in that same time frame, and offensively we're still leaps and bounds ahead of them. So you would hope that the in-season tournament, like the stakes there and sort of the necessity, if we do want to get into that knockout stage and potentially to Vegas, that actually those stakes help the Celtics play the Magic with an approach that they haven't in the past, with one of importance and substance, i.e. we need to win this game, which has never been the case playing the Magic, but we'll have to see. But in-season tournament, apparently the Magic in-season tournament courts are one of the better ones. Hopefully it's not as slippery as the Toronto one. You could see if you'll pardon the expression, Jaylen Brown rubbing the groin a little bit in today's game. So clearly that slip on the Toronto court is still impacting him. Hopefully we don't see a double down on that in Orlando there, Jake.
Was that the groin, or did he get kneed in the thigh?
It was the thigh / groin. It was definitely the groin area.
Oh, for sure. But we didn't quite see it on the screen. He was just kind of grabbing it. So I thought that it was, because he played incredibly, I just assumed that it was more of like a knee to the groin as opposed to a slip on the groin.
I hope you're right.
I'm right for sure, dude.
Okay. Just thought I'd look up the odds on FanDuel before we wrap up here. But of course, my internet is just dragging along here.
I think I saw it was Celtics favored by 4, if I'm not mistaken.
5.5 is the line currently.
5.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would bet the Magic +5 for sure on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good look.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we've gone an hour here. Like I said, this is going to end up on the podcast feed because we just don't have the time or capacity to get another pod up this week. So if you're here on the channel for the first time, go and subscribe, First to the Floor, wherever you like your podcasts. Looking at all these comments coming in about people's Celtics fandoms and the origin.
It's sick.
Really, really good stuff. Always really interesting, particularly this part of the world. Like, you just don't encounter many Celtics fans, so it's always good to see. Jake, anything you want to wrap up on?
Mate, the Celtics are back. I never wavered. I wasn't concerned at all in the last episode. Never in doubt. Incredible win. I think you have to have a lot of confidence. The way that the Celtics match up against the Sixers and the Bucks, like, I have absolutely no worries. Just pray that someone is able to beat the Heat before we get to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, that'd be good. I can't even think about the Heat. I haven't looked at like the upcoming month's schedule, but I think it's a while until we play them again.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter anyway. Like, it's the playoffs with them. Like, we'll probably,
totally.
Anyway.
All right, cool. We'll leave it there. Appreciate everyone who's tuned in live or after the fact. Everyone have a beautiful Thanksgiving if you celebrate. If not, have a beautiful weekend regardless. And we'll see you next time. Go Celtics.